NBA, Demon God Pangu dominates basketball Immortal myth. Episode 11. All the fans watching the game at the scene and faces confused. Smash the rebound. The scene that happened just now was really shocking. Most people here have only seen such a scene on TV, never seen it with their own eyes, and today they are a feast for their eyes. What is the origin of this Celestial Empire player? It has such a terrifying power. Made. Smash the rebound. The University of Arizona is hiding too deeply, right? With such a player, why not take it out earlier? This guy is estimated to be the biggest surprise of March Madness this year. Who would have thought that a center from the Celestial Empire would have such a performance? It's interesting, now North Carolina is ahead, but with guys like this, the devil knows what's going to happen next. Crazy 3 first round, North Carolina kicked the iron plate in the first round today. In the audience, the fans kept talking. From their expressions, a little shock could be seen. On the sidelines, Michael Jordan and Vince Carter were also completely shocked. Just now, they just thought that this center from the Celestial Empire would be a good seedling, but now they have completely changed this view. This guy is not just a good seedling, he is simply the second generation of O'Neal. The last guy who was able to dunk rebounds was Shaquille O'Neal. Michael Jordan's eyes narrowed slightly. He feels that this center from the Celestial Empire, even if he does not grow to the height of O'Neal, can definitely become a player in the NBA league who stomps his foot and trembles the league. On the bench, the University of Arizona players were also shocked. This is the second basketball hoop they have seen Jiang Pan scrapped. Because of the damage to the rebound, the game was interrupted. The staff at the scene hurriedly began to clean up the debris all over the floor. The NCAA is not much slower than the NBA, including the staff, and it takes a while to replace the spare basketball hoop, which can be regarded as a change of direction to give both players a long break. Jiang, you are also too outrageous, right? You proper basketball hoop saboteur. On the bench, Richard Jefferson looked at Jiang Pan, who was walking towards the bench, and sighed. Basket destroyer? I think he's a complete board maniac, a board maniac. Arenas shook his head and grinned. And Arizona's starting center Lauren Woods turned into Jiang Pan's little fan brother, sitting on the bench and throwing towels wildly. He had secretly decided that if they had the next game, he would give up his starting position. Although Jiang Pan has only been on the field for a long time, his ability has been vividly displayed. Not to mention that he beat the opposite Brandon Haywood in these rounds, just saying that he smashed the rebound this time was enough to amaze everyone. A kind of perverted power not everyone can have. University of Arizona head coach Humphries was even more ecstatic. He really picked up the treasure, and it is not an ordinary treasure. This is a priceless treasure. With Jiang Pan sitting on the inside line, and Arenas cooperating with each other, they really have the possibility of a big upset and knocking out the University of North Carolina. At this moment, Jiang Pan said to Humphries a little embarrassed, "Coach, this rebound. Do I need to pay compensation?" As soon as these words came out, Humphries was immediately stunned, and he thought that Jiang Pan was going to find him for something. "Coach, or you give me another one, I'm poor," Jiang Pan said with a smile. All the players in Arizona froze, their eyes looking at Jiang Pan without blinking. "You guy, it's really a strange flower." Humphries was a little crying and laughing, and he said, "No problem, but I have a prerequisite." Saying this, Humphrey looked at Jiang Pan with a serious expression. "What conditions?" Humphries pointed to the North Carolina players on the other side and said slowly, "Help the team and win this game, that's it?" "No problem." Hearing this condition, Jiang Pan immediately agreed. Humphries patted Jiang Pan's shoulder. In fact, his words were just a joke. Regardless of the victory or defeat of the game, if he needs compensation, he will willingly help Jiang Pan take out this money. Humphries didn't think they could win the game. After all, the University of North Carolina is here. After 15 minutes, the spare basketball hoop was finally replaced and the game continued. However, before going on the field, Humphries did not forget to give a special instruction to Jiang Pan. "You kid tap, it's broken again, and I don't earn much." Jiang Pan. The game continues, with the University of North Carolina on the ball. A half-hour break allowed them to redeploy. On the offensive end, they try not to hit the ball inside, but try to find shooting opportunities on the outside. However, in this way, the offensive efficiency of the University of North Carolina will be much reduced. After all, the success rate of the outside shot is far less than that of the inside, but this is also a helpless move. Ford faced Arena's defense and forced a shot. Bang! The ball was simply outrageous, and the basketball had just wiped the edge of the basket, but it happened to fall into Brandon Haywood's hands. Haywood didn't hesitate to get up and dunk. But who knows, at the moment when he raised his hands, Jiang Pan's hand accurately cut on the surface of the ball, and cut off the ball in his hand in one fell swoop. Immediately afterwards, Jiang Pan dribbled the ball again and rushed to the front, leaving all the North Carolina players behind with incredible speed. This ball is very similar to the one he just dunked the rebound. Is this guy going to? Mike Bryn's expression was completely frozen, and his eyes were staring at Jiang Pan motionlessly. After Jiang Pan re-entered the three-point line, he took 2 big steps and immediately took off into the air. Tap. Seeing such a scene, Humphries hurriedly reminded him. The sound reached Jiang Pan's ears, and he only collected a little strength and steadily poured the ball into the basket. Oh God! See what? Ladies and gentlemen, how do I feel? This dunk of Jiang Pan is obviously collecting strength. I guess he must be afraid of breaking the new basketball hoop. Over the next few rounds, the University of North Carolina's offense was completely power out. The sound of hitting the iron kept sounding, and if the basket had feelings, it was estimated that they would be crying. Soon, under Jiang Pan's leadership, the University of Arizona overtook the score and extended its lead even wider. In the second half of the game, the final 4 minutes, with Jiang Pan's another violent dunk, the gap between the two teams has widened to 20 points. Game, completely lose suspense. Jiang Pan was also replaced by Humphries after a timeout. He came off the bench in the second half, slashing 32 points and 15 rebounds alone, almost single-handedly turning things around. 15 of those rebounds, setting a personal rebounding record in the second half of the NCAA. What is even more exaggerated is that Jiang Pan still scored these 32 points with a 100% shooting percentage. It was also the first player in NCAA history to shoot 100% from the field and score more than 30-plus points in the half. With the final whistle blowing, the game is over. In the end, the University of Arizona eliminated the University of North Carolina with a score of 98-74. This is also the first upset miracle of this crazy March. Miracles, starting with Crazy 3. Episode 12. The moment the final whistle blew, the University of Arizona bench instantly fell into madness. These substitute players rushed onto the court one by one and celebrated wildly around Jiang Pan. We won. We beat North Carolina. Jiang. You are really amazing, arenas roared hoarsely. On the sidelines, their head coach, Humphries, stared at the scoreboard with an incredulous expression. But the constant cheers in his ears really told him that all this was true, and they had defeated North Carolina. The reporters on the scene were busy making a post-match summary, and the game was really unexpected. All kinds of words of praise fell on Jiang Pan's body. Jiang Pan is the first miracle of March Madness this season. His birth will raise the strength of the University of Arizona to a new level. He will become the biggest variable of the entire March Madness. The University of North Carolina is the biggest team in NCAA history, and it is the top 3 teams in this year's championship list. And they, just entering March Madness, were kicked out of the first game. At this moment, Brandon Haywood and Joseph Ferdry were completely dumbfounded. There was pain in their eyes, and the two couldn't help but look at Jiang Pan, and the bitterness in their hearts was known only to them. The loss of this game means that all their efforts for a year have drunk the northwest wind. And this season is already Brandon Haywood's 4th college career, and missing this time, he will never have another chance to compete for the NCAA championship. After the game, the reporters on the scene also did post-match interviews with the players from both sides. The reporter first interviewed Haywood, a core player at the University of North Carolina. Brandon, it's a pity that you guys are out today, and before the start of the game, this may be a result that no one expected. Tell me how you feel right now. In the face of the reporter's interview, Haywood's heart was very uncomfortable. He was silent for a moment before he slowly spoke. When March Madness arrives, we are full of confidence, and the team's goal is to win the championship. We predicted the opponents in each round, and even arranged the tactics of each round, but we never imagined that the University of Arizona would eliminate us, and I was reluctant to accept such an outcome, but now this is the truth. In the end, Haywood's mood became more and more lost, and even his voice became a little hoarse. Later, the reporter interviewed Joseph Ford. Ford was also very disappointed. I didn't expect that the first race of March Madness would meet such an opponent. That Celestial Empire center called Jiang Pan is the biggest reason why we lost the game. He's the strongest interior lineman I've ever seen, and there's no one. Ford gave the greatest affirmation to Jiang Pan, and finally added, he is the secret nuclear weapon of the University of Arizona, but after this game, he is not a secret. I have to remind Jiang Pan's next opponent that everyone should be careful in the face of him. He's the X factor of this crazy 3. The reporter interviewed several North Carolina players, and almost everyone was deeply impressed by Jiang Pan. After concluding the interview with the University of North Carolina, it was the turn of today's winner, the University of Arizona. All the reporters at the scene surrounded Jiang Pan. Jiang, you know what? You broke 2 NCAA records in this game. Facing this tall center from the Celestial Empire, reporters interviewed him and felt a pressing force. Record-breaking? Jiang Pan was stunned for a moment, and immediately replied, I really don't know this, I just focused on the game, and I didn't care about these messy records. Reporter. What an unexpected answer. What do you say about your opponent, Brandon Haywood? He is a first-round rookie predicted by draft and a future NBA player. Jiang Pan originally wanted to tell the truth. He felt that Haywood was really too dish, and before he could exert much strength, the game was over. However, in the end, he still humbly pretended to be false, forced, and said, Brandon is indeed a good opponent, he is on the inside. It caused me quite a bit of trouble. Hearing this answer, the reporters swallowed their saliva one after another. Are you serious? Or put aside this air conditioner and say cool words, this sounds like sarcasm. Haywood's statistics in the second half were 0 points, 1 rebound, and the score was directly cleansed by Jiang Pan. Just such an opponent is also called good? Then it seems that there are no garbage players in Jiang Pan's mouth. In the eyes of these journalists, Jiang Pan, this is a typical Versailles answer. Finally, the reporter asked, you beat Brandon Haywood today, and he is draft's first-round prediction rookie. Do you think you can also enter the NBA? Entering the NBA? Do you still have to ask such a stupid question? With his current strength, let alone enter the NBA, the lowest is also an all-star start. This time, Jiang Pan was no longer modest, shrugged his shoulders, and said calmly, what I want is not only to enter the NBA, it's about dominating the NBA. As soon as these words came out, the reporters around were all frozen. One by one, their faces showed shocked looks. Jiang Pan is just a freshman, and he has only played this game, although he has played very well, but it is too early to say that he will dominate the NBA. This guy just looked humble and dying, how did it swell into this now? Arenas, who was standing on the side, was drinking water, and when he heard Jiang Pan's answer, he almost spewed out a mouthful of salt soda. This guy, what a big breath. After the interview with Jiang Pan, the reporter also invited Arizona's head coach Humphries. Coach Humphries, congratulations on winning the first win of March Madness, and against a team like North Carolina. I want to know, when did Jiang join the team? This is what the reporter wants to know. After all, Jiang Pan seems to appear out of thin air, and they want to have a comprehensive understanding of the center of this celestial empire. Humphries did not hide it, but said bluntly, actually, I knew him not long ago, or through Gilbert's introduction. You mean not long ago? The reporter was shocked by his answer again. How is it possible for a player who has just joined to play such a terrifying performance in the game? I know you're incredible, but that's the truth, and all I can say is God's favor. In my opinion, Jiang is God's favor for me. A favor to Arizona. Episode 13. After the game, Michael Jordan and Vince Carr/T left the arena. That center forward from the Celestial Empire made me feel the feeling of blood boiling again. Jordan's tone was tinged with excitement. Haha. Could it be that you have seen this kid for a long time, so you will choose to come back? Carr/T said jokingly. Jordan thought for a moment and said with a smile, if I nod, will you give up chasing this guy? Carr/T looked at Jordan with a surprised expression. That's not going to happen, you haven't got this guy yet, have you? Jordan showed a determined look. Well, I admit that I just met him. Carr/T smiled. Jordan just celebrated his 38th birthday. By his age, most teams are in retirement and no one is thinking of a comeback. Because of this age, even the most powerful players have experienced a cliff-like decline in their form. But Jordan announced his comeback again after announcing his retirement for the second time not long ago, making the entire league a sensation. A hot man, he's back with a double smack. He is gone, and his legend is circulating throughout the rivers and lakes. And he is back now, since he is 38 years old. Then again, aren't leisurely days uncomfortable? Still thinking about tossing? Carr/T said, besides, even if you come back now, how much strength can you have left? Carr/T is very puzzled why Jordan still has the idea of a comeback. If it is him, he is not willing to toss so much. To be honest, if you are idle for too long, you will inevitably get bored, and you look at the news in the league now. Talk about how good Kobe is, and how you can dunk, and so on. Lao Tzu was very upset when he saw these news, and seeing the performance of this Celestial Empire center forward today made Lao Tzu's blood boil. Also, don't question my ability, don't say 38 years old, even if you are older, you can burst. Jordan's last words were very confident. For his own ability, he knows it all too well, no matter how bad it is to get an average of 25 points per game, it is still commonplace. He felt that he still had a lot of oil in his tank. After the two separated, Jordan made sure Carr/T didn't follow. so he called the Wizards management. Listen, today I watched the North Carolina vs Arizona match, although it is difficult to accept, but Arizona was stunned and defeated Lao Tzu's alma mater. Michael Jordan said, I watched the whole process of the game, from the fame of the two teams, it was a blowout, but from the quality of the game, it was a well-deserved victory. So Michael, what exactly are you trying to express? On the other end of the phone, the general manager of the Wizards asked. I found an extremely talented Celestial Empire player in the University of Arizona players, he. Before Jordan's words were finished, he was interrupted by the other party's shocked voice. What? Celestial Empire player, did I hear you right? Still extremely talented? Michael, aren't you drinking too much? Or are you sure he's not half-blood? The general manager of the Wizards couldn't believe his ears. I'm pretty sure he's probably the first super player to come out of the Celestial Empire, and I've seen talent in him that rivals Shaquille. Jordan said in a serious voice. Listening to Jordan's tone, he didn't seem to be joking, but this sentence really sounded like a fantasy. If the Celestial Empire really produced such a good player, then why had he never heard of it before? Jordan knew that the other party did not believe so easily, so he continued, if you don't believe it, you can pay more attention to the next game at the University of Arizona. I think the big man of the Celestial Empire named Jiang Pan will definitely interest you. The other thing is, I can't wait to get back. Jordan's second comeback was on September 25, 2001, and he was already considering a comeback before September 25, and the team that came back was the Wizards. On the other side, Vince Carr/T returned to the Raptors. Like MJ, he immediately reported Jiang Pan's situation to the team's management. The Raptors' strength is not weak this season, and Carter/T has led the team to the playoffs, but they have no bottom in their hearts for the championship. After all, the Lakers' OK combination is at its peak, and they are much better than the Raptors in terms of roster, not to mention that they may not be able to beat the East. Especially now that the Philadelphia 76ers have a 2-0 lead in the series, they only need one more win to advance to the second round. And the Raptors' second-round opponent is likely to be the Philadelphia 76ers led by Answer Iverson, which is definitely a strong opponent. At this time, the NBA adopted a best-of-5 game system in the first round of the playoffs. This season, Aaron Fossen played the best season of his career and won the MVP, and the playoffs are still fierce, and Vince Carr/T is not as strong as Iverson. Moreover, the Raptors' interior has always had problems, which makes him even more bottomless. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so jealous of the 76ers. Believe me, if Jiang Pan announces his participation in the draft today, he must find a way to sign him, he has great potential. The team management listened to Carr/T's description of Jiang Pan, and the impression of a player gradually became clear in their minds. However, they made it clear that Carr/T should focus on the middle of the season first, and that there is no need to be so anxious about the off-season signings. As for Jiang Pan, they'll definitely pay attention. After this battle, Jiang Pan also began to become famous in the NCAA, and even attracted the attention of many NBA teams. Even some teams in the lottery zone began to be anxious about Jiang Pan, and as soon as he announced that he would participate in the draft at the end of the season, these teams decided to throw an olive branch to him. In addition to these teams in the NBA, the most concerned about Jiang Pan now are the NCAA's strong teams. Among them, including another NCAA team, the Duke University Blue Devils. This season's Duke University is so strong that it is almost the inner winner of the championship. Their lineup is luxurious: Sean Battier plus Carlos Boozer plus Jay Williams plus Michael Dunleavy plus Duntai Jones, and many more. These top four are all draft picks in the lotto zone in the prediction. And according to the correct historical trajectory, Jay Williams and Michael Dunleavy, one is the 2002 list, the other is the same year's Tanhua. Even Duntai Jones is the NBA's first-round pick. At this moment, these 5 players are discussing Jiang Pan together. Because Duke University also has a fatal weakness, that is, their lack of interior height. Carlos Boozer is only 206 centimeters tall, and under normal circumstances, he should be in the power forward position. But Duke really doesn't have a big center, so it puts him in the position of a big center. According to their understanding, Jiang Pan's height is 216 centimeters, and if they really meet by then Boozer will suffer too much on the inside. For this reason, they paid great attention to Jiang Pan, but only that, and did not feel afraid. After all, basketball is a team sport of 5 people. Even if Jiang Pan is strong, it is impossible to be the opponent of the 5 of them. Duke is confident in its own qualities, and they have rarely lost this season. And the team's common goal is that golden trophy. Episode 14. At the same time, another dark horse of March Madness, University of Notre Dame, is also discussing Jiang Pan. Because their next upcoming game is the University of Arizona. The core leaders of the Notre Dame team are Ryan Humphrey and Troy Murphy. Troy Murphy, in particular, averaged a quasi-double-double of 21.8 points and 9.2 rebounds per game this season. In his sophomore and junior seasons, he was unanimously named to the NCAA All-Meter All-Minute First Team for 2 consecutive years. You know, in the history of the NCAA, only 4 players have been able to win this award twice. The other 3 are Chris Moulin from St. John's University, Patrick Ewing from Arenas City University, and Richard Hamilton from the University of Connecticut. Now, Troy Murphy is the 5th, which shows how outstanding his strength is. He was also the last 3 finalists in Naismith's Player of the Year selection and was twice named to the All-Eastern Conference First Team. So far, Murphy has averaged 21.4 points and 9.8 rebounds per game throughout his college career. He has interior control, excellent feeling, even three-point range, and left-handed jump shots, which often make opponents defenseless. Whether it is fame or strength, Murphy's college performance is simply impeccable. Therefore, in his eyes, Jiang Pan can only be regarded as a fledgling in front of him, nothing at all. Troy, the next match against Arizona, that Celestial Empire center, will be handed over to you. Ryan Humphrey said leisurely. He did not think Jiang Pan was Murphy's opponent. Oh, no problem, although that guy's talent is good, the fact of dunking the rebound is shocking. But that only means that he can dunk the rebound, not that he will win. The corners of Troy Murphy's mouth curved. He also heard about Jiang Pan's miraculous play against the University of North Carolina, but he thought the outbreak was short-lived. Therefore, he is not afraid of Jiang Pan at all. He feels that Jiang Pan is a talented player at best, but he is the strongest technical center in the entire NCAA. Even the best player. I think it's better to be careful. After all, I don't know much about that Celestial Empire center, in case. The other teammate was interrupted before he could finish speaking. No if. Troy Murphy said, I have faced so many power-type centers, but none of them can beat me. That center of the Celestial Empire will be the next loser. Troy Murphy's confidence comes from his own strength. Moreover, he was already a little impatient to defeat Jiang Pan. Since the University of Arizona defeated Pekai University, Jiang Pan's fame has spread throughout the school. Now every student in Arizona knows. It was Jiang Pan who led the team to a super reversal. And Jiang Pan's appearance is relatively tough and handsome, which is very consistent with the aesthetics of most girls. Therefore, for this center of the Celestial Empire, many female students in school are secretly agreed. These days, Jiang Pan and Gilbert Arenas came out of the school training arena, and on the way back to the dormitory, they could meet several girls who took the initiative to greet Jiang Pan at any time. Jiang Pan's fame in the school battle made Arenas depressed. Because some female fans who used to like Arenas have liked Jiang Pan. Moreover, in private, he completely ignored himself. Poor Arenas was supposed to be the hero of the University of Arizona, but this time it was good, and the field became a backdrop. Moreover, many of these girls who greeted him were the kind of big asses he liked, and Arenas was extremely hungry now. I now regret introducing you to the coach. Didn't I smash my job? Arenas's tone was actually a little aggrieved. Haha. Jiang Pan said with a smile, don't worry, there can be a few good goods here. And when you enter the NBA and have money in the future, you will grow into an alpaca and you can also get the girl you like, Jiang Pan said leisurely. Hearing this, Arenas felt that there was some truth in this, and his depressed mood immediately improved. But it's just. He felt the need to see if he had an alpaca handsomeness. By the way, I'm going to be in the NBA draft at the end of this season. What about you? Will you also participate this year? Arenas had some anticipation in his heart. He very much hopes that Jiang Pan can participate in the draft with him, or even enter the same team. But everyone thinks differently. Jiang Pan has only played his first season in the NCAA, and he is still young and can choose to play for 2 more years, so Arenas is not good to say to him. Sure. Jiang Pan said with a smile. Arenas did not expect that Jiang Pan's attitude was so resolute. Actually, you can still hone for another 2 years. Do you really have to be so anxious to participate in the draft? Arenas asked again. If you can enter the NBA, why abuse food in the college league? Jiang Pan said with a smile. Have you ever seen a king who likes to go to the master and play with food and vegetables? This way. Does Coach Humphreys know what you think? Jiang Pan shook his head. I haven't told him yet. Arenas suddenly felt a little sympathetic to Humphreys. After all, he had such a talented player under him. As a result, Jiang Pan is determined to participate in the draft at the end of this season, and with his ability, he will definitely not lose at that time. In other words, if they make it to the NCAA finals, Humphries will only have 5 games to play with Jiang Pan. He now wondered how wonderful the expression on Humphries' face would be when he learned about this. However, if Jiang Pan came briefly, it would have brought Humphries a championship. That's a great compensation. Arenas, since you want to participate in the draft, do you have any teams in particular that you want to join? It's not, in my opinion, it's the same everywhere, you can play the NBA anyway. Saying this, Jiang Pan suddenly paused, and then said, but my only principle is to be the leader of the team. As soon as these words came out, Arenas was stunned. Because of his ideas, it coincides with Jiang Pan. Well said. That's what I was thinking too. Either you don't play, you have to be the boss of the team, preferably the kind of unlimited fire like Michael Jordan back then. Looking at Arenas' Top Gun look, Jiang Pan suddenly smiled and said, then you still want to hold my thigh now? This sentence made Arenas' face full of black lines. For a while, I didn't know how to answer. This thigh, you have to hug it. You too, what's the point of fighting for the boss of the team, won't you have to win the championship? This topic also attracted Richard Jefferson. Anyway, I don't care, it's okay to be the boss, as long as I can win the championship. Jefferson doesn't have that much pursuit. Even if you want to, your own way of playing, you don't allow it. Listen to what you mean, do you want to hold my thigh when you enter the NBA in the future? Jiang Pan laughed and teased. Richard Jefferson said seriously, don't say it, that's the best. Episode 15. 3 days later, the NCAA March Madness round of 32 began. Today, the University of Arizona will compete with the University of Notre Dame for a spot in the round of 16, and the game is scheduled to be played at the Magic's home arena. In the audience in the front row, sitting 2 familiar figures are none other than Tracy McGrady plus Grant Hill. Just the other day, they suffered defeat in the playoffs, losing 1-3 to the Milwaukee Bucks, with Ray Allen. The two who retired early from the playoffs had nothing to do and came here to watch the NCAA game, just in time for the Jiang Pan game. Since Jiang Pan broke the rebound in the last game, many people have heard about it, and Maddie and Hill are certainly among them. To put it bluntly, they will come to see the game today, in fact, just to watch Jiang Pan. They wanted to see how strong this center from the Celestial Empire really was, and whether it was really as reported by those media. I think Jiang has a great chance of starting today. Maddie's eyes were filled with anticipation. Of course, if I were the head coach at the University of Arizona, I would have started him in the last game. Hill said while staring at Jiang Pan, who was warming up. When Hill saw Jiang Pan's body with his own eyes, even he was a little shocked. This guy's body size really doesn't look like a player of the Celestial Empire. According to media reports, comparing Jiang Pan to O'Neal of the Celestial Empire, he thought it was just a demonization by the media. When I see it today, it really smells a little fat. When we lost to the Bucks, the most important thing was the interior problem, we lacked a strong interior lineman. Maddie said suddenly. He actually lost very unwillingly, coupled with being privately compared by his good brother Kobe, he has always been sullen. Grant Hill also nodded, and he agreed with Maddie. Tracy, who do you think Jiang Pan and Troy Murphy would be the better insider? Jiang Pan. Maddie did not hesitate and answered categorically. So sure? Hill thought Maddie would choose Murphy, but he actually said Jiang Pan's name. Maddie glanced at Hill. I know you're more optimistic about Murphy. Indeed, according to normal thinking, I should also be on Murphy's side. After all, Jiang Pan only played 1 game, but Murphy has been famous for a long time. But I don't know why, I think the center of this celestial empire will continue to create miracles that belong to him. Maddie himself couldn't say why he supported Jiang Pan so much. It's just that he has such an intuition in his heart that Jiang Pan can defeat Murphy and lead the team to victory. In fact, there is another reason why he supports Jiang Pan so much, and it is because of his cousin Vince Carr/Ter. When Carr/T was chatting with him, he also mentioned Jiang Pan and spoke highly of him, which left a deep impression on Maddie's mind. And Carr/T also told him that if Jiang Pan participated in the draft, he would definitely find a way to get the team to sign him. A guy who can make Carr/T so optimistic has something extraordinary. The match was about to start, and the reporter gave a pre-match interview with the players from both sides. Troy, in this game you are about to face Jiang Pan from the Celestial Empire. He played a crucial role in the last win over North Carolina and kept a clean sheet against Brandon Haywood in the second half. What's even scarier is that he also dunked rebounds in the game and showed super strength. With him today, do you have the confidence to defeat him? In the face of reporters' questions, Troy Murphy put on a calm look. He's a player with great physical talent, but he's only played 1 game and I know what he lacks, it's the experience of the game. I've been playing here for many seasons, so I'm the one with the better advantage in comparison. What's more, I'm two different types of interior linemen with him, and I watched highlights from his last game, and almost all of his offense ended with dunks under the basket. This kind of offense is really rough. I will use my mid-range shot and the feel plus footwork under the basket to teach him how to play. Murphy's answer was confident, even smelling of contempt. It was as if he had seen through Jiang Pan and could completely eat him. Later, the reporter came to Jiang Pan again. Jiang, this is your second game in the NCAA, and the player against you is the long-established Troy Murphy, who is stronger than Brandon Haywood. Just now Troy also said that he wants to beat you with technique and mid-range shots. What do you think about this? And Jiang Pan scratched his head blankly. Troy Murphy? Who is this? Did this guy enter the NBA? I tried to spin the name in my head, but in the end I found nothing. Excuse me, who did you just say? What's the matter? I don't know. Hearing this answer, the reporter was speechless for a while. He thought to himself, where the hell did this guy come from? Even if this is his second NCAA game, he won't have heard Troy Murphy's name, right? Right. The center of this celestial empire must be pretending. And Troy Murphy happened to be next to him, and he heard Jiang Pan's words clearly, and his lungs were about to explode. Don't know Lao Tzu? Are you kidding? Who is Lao Tzu? A ruthless character averaging 20 plus 10 per game. Who in the entire NCAA league doesn't know Lao Tzu? Murphy also believes that Jiang Pan is pretending to be angry with him. At the same time, this also means that Jiang Pan did not put Murphy in his eyes at all. How can Murphy endure this? I was ignored by a player who had just played an NCAA game. Murphy had secretly vowed in his heart that he would burst Jiang Pan in this game. After a few moments, the warm-up ends. The competition has officially begun. Sure enough, Jiang Pan was placed by Humphreys in the starting center position. Jiang Pan won the trust of the team in just one game. On the commentary table, Mike Bryn narrates. I think whoever sees Jiang Pan's last game will make him the starter. And it's already March Madness, and the University of Arizona has such a player. Wouldn't it be a waste of talent not to put him in the starting lineup? Amy John said with a smile. Amy, predict whether he can cut 30 points in this game. Mike Bryn's expression was full of interest. I think it's difficult. After all, he has to face Troy Murphy, and he will definitely not let Jiang Pan have an easy chance to score. I think maybe it's time for his miracle to end. 20 points is his limit. Amy John's analysis. Is it? I don't think so. With his power, Troy may not be able to prevent him. In the last game, Mike Bryn witnessed the miraculous performance of Jiang Pan, and he was completely impressed by Jiang Pan's performance. And this game, he is even more looking forward to what kind of surprises Jiang Pan can bring. Episode 16. In fact, Jiang Pan being able to stand here as a starter is already a great success. He has become the first Celestial Empire player to start in NCAA history. The opening whistle blows, and the two sides play a center circle jump. You supposedly snapped your rebounds in the last game? Gee. It's a lot of power. However, the brute can only stay at the table. When jumping the ball, Troy Murphy unceremoniously sprayed at Jiang Pan. Silly. Jiang Pan replied coldly, although brief, but very imposing. Feelings, this big white steamed bun, is it a new mocking villain face? Before the fight started, there was a strong smell of gunpowder between the two, and Jiang Pan didn't know where he offended him, or maybe this person was such a temper. After all, the basketball court is big, and there are all kinds of trolls. The referee separated the two, signaled their respective positions, and then threw the ball high. Jiang Pan and Trail Murphy jumped almost at the same time, but both the speed and height of the bullet were Jiang Pan's opponents. Tongue. I saw Jiang Pan stretching his long arms in the air, and with a flick of his fingertips, he won the first wave of offensive power. Arenas held the ball through the halfway and immediately played a block with Jiang Pan. Jiang Pan quickly went down with a block, and Arenas used a shooting motion to throw the ball in the direction of the basket. Gilbert's shot is also casual, right? Mike Bryn immediately said that he did not understand the meaning of Arenas' shot at all. The players at the University of Notre Dame, as well as the fans at the scene, also thought it was a shot. But at this moment, the following Jiang Pan stepped up sharply, and after receiving the ball in the air, he dunked into the basket. The players at the University of Notre Dame were dumbfounded. Isn't this a shot? How did it become empty? Troy Murphy said to the referee on the bottom line, it was an offensive jamming ball. No, this is a beautiful air connection. The referee decisively dismissed Murphy's words, which left him with a black line. Murphy frowned. First, put aside the controversy, just say Jiang Pan's attack, his speed and jumping height are indeed completely full of talent. Cultivate well, and in time you may really grow to a terrible height. But for now, he is not afraid, he is confident that his technology can fully cope with Jiang Pan. Looking back, Notre Dame sent out the bottom line. After they carried the ball through halftime, Murphy immediately asked for the ball on the inside line, wanting to single. Seeing this, Ryan Humphrey gave the ball directly to the past, and he fully believed that Murphy could easily solve the problem. At this time, the fans at the scene immediately concentrated their attention and set their eyes on the two of them. Jiang Pan versus Murphy. It is considered the biggest attraction of this game. As soon as the game began, the two were matched. Boom. After holding the ball, Troy Murphy sat on his back to play the river, and pushed twice, but found that he couldn't lift the Jiang Pan at all. Murphy was surprised. He blushed and exerted all his strength, wanting to try again, but the result was the same. Stable as a rock. He even wondered if he was on top of a boulder. Murphy gave up the idea of a strong fight and began to use technology. So. I saw that he was constantly changing his steps, quite a bit of a dream dance move, which was his confident means. But no matter how he shook, Jiang Pan was still as stable as Mount Tai. The surprise in Murphy's heart increased a little. He didn't expect the defensive ability of this Celestial Empire Center to be so strong. Top does not move. I don't eat it. Seeing that there was little time left to attack, Murphy moved smartly, intending to make a turn and throw. He uses his right foot as the axis, and while raising his left foot, he uses the rotation of his waist to drive the whole body. This turn was done very crisply and quickly, but he found that his position was still shrouded in Jiang Pan's defense. In amazement, he made another penalty feint and wanted to point Jiang Pan to make a foul, but his trick was completely recognized by Jiang Pan. This time, he failed again. With only the last 5 seconds left on the offensive, Murphy completely lost himself on the inside. He kept spinning around, dodging and pointing, just not shooting. In fact, it's not that he doesn't shoot, but because Jiang Pan's defensive oppression is too strong, he has no room to shoot at all. Pass the ball quickly. On the sidelines, the head coach of the University of Notre Dame was in a hurry. But now Murphy was so shocked and anxious that he didn't hear it at all. With only 1 second left in the attack, in a hurry, Troy Murphy forced the ball out. As soon as the basketball left its fingertips, it was intercepted by a huge palm that slapped the fan out. Snap. At this time, Jiang Pan looked at Troy Murphy as if he were looking at a monkey. Xiaxiu, what about you, Shosho? Murphy's so-called inside technology. To him, it was like a monkey juggling. It kept spinning like a spinning top, making him impatient. The basketball that was fanned just fell into Arenas' hands, and he quickly pushed back. Jiang Pan was like a bolt of lightning, rushing towards the front field, and once again staged an empty catch. Woo-woo. Jiang's speed is too terrible. He completed the block in the backfield and rushed to the front court in an instant. I can guarantee that his speed is definitely the existence of the first gear inside. Mike Brent exclaimed, this ball showed him wet. The rain drenched the sky, and your operation wet me. Come. Jiang, some fans at the scene shouted loudly. Even Maddie and Grant Hill were hooked. The two openings of Jiang Pan and Arenas fully reached the NBA level. The strength of this Celestial Empire Center is definitely not a flash in the pan. He has the potential to become a basketball superstar. Maddie couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Grant Hill also stared at Jiang Pan and nodded, and after only 2 rounds, he changed his opinion on Jiang Pan. Now he also thinks that Troy Murphy may really be inferior to Jiang Pan. On the court, Murphy looked at the Jiang Pan hanging on the basket, his brows tightly furrowed. However, he still walked over and said hard to Jiang Pan, it's another dunk, but it's just a rough man who can only dunk. Jiang Pan, on the other hand, shrugged. I almost forgot to ask, did you play women's basketball before? As soon as these words came out, Murphy was stunned. What do you mean by that? Jiang Pan laughed, a soft interior like you, I have only seen it in the women's basketball team. Troy Murphy, horse, playing women's basketball? Humiliate. This is the humiliation of the red fruit. Jiang Pan's words drilled into Murphy's ears and immediately made him angry. Episode 17. In the opening game, Jiang and Gilbert staged 2 empty dunks, and they showed full aggression on the offensive end. The University of Notre Dame must now make timely adjustments to limit Jiang's attack on the inside as much as possible. On the commentary table, Mike Brent said seriously. With less than a minute into the opening game, the University of Arizona had a 4-0 lead, which was a good start for them. From Jiang's personal condition, he continued his last fiery performance. Now Troy Murphy needs to step up and help the team out of this situation and see what he does next. Amy John chimed in. In the audience, Maddie and Grant were completely attracted to Jiang Pan. Now, Maddie finally knows what /T will make such a high opinion of Jiang Pan, and even wants to get Jiang Pan to the Raptors. With such a good seedling, how can you join the Raptors? Jiang Pan should belong to Magic. That's right. Maddie already had the idea of wanting to rob someone with his cousin Vince's /Tur. Grant, what would you think if you got him on the team? Maddie said, pointing to the river plate on the court. Grant's eyes lit up. In fact, he was already moved, and when he heard Maddie's words, he immediately replied, I also have this intention. If this kid comes, our team has almost no weaknesses. Grant said seriously, and my thoughts jumped again in an instant. Wait. Tamid, he's coming. Isn't Lao Tzu going to be the three masters? Maddie coughed lightly and immediately laughed. This is a team sport, we must also have team spirit. For the sake of the team, sacrifice some is also deserved. Nonsense. It's not you who gives way, he just squeezes out my position as the second in charge when he comes, and you will say cool words, Grant Hill said resentfully. But he's just joking. If Jiang Pan can really join the Magic team, he is estimated to be bubbling beautifully. The game went on and the ball went back into the hands of the University of Notre Dame. Troy Murphy is now holding his stomach on fire, and he continues to come to the status and ask for the ball to eat the plate. He tried many times, and all kinds of techniques were used, but he couldn't score in front of Jiang Pan at all. In desperation, he had to pass the ball out again. Fans were disappointed to see Murphy perform like this. In their impression, Murphy did not have an offensive dead corner on the field. How could he be beaten like this against Jiang Pan? Troy's performance today was really substandard, as if it was a different person. This is not the Troy Murphy we know. Mike Brin's tone was full of disappointment. I think it's not that Murphy didn't play well, but that Jiang Pan's defense is too good. To be honest, it's the first time I've seen someone defend Murphy so well. Amy John sighed. After the basketball was passed, it was spinning around outside, and it didn't get a good shot. Except for Murphy's offense, the other players at the University of Notre Dame have a mediocre offensive ability. After passing the basketball once, it returned to Murphy's hands. Seeing that the offensive time was about to run out again, Murphy could only bite the bullet, resisting Jiang Pan's defense and shooting from mid-range jumper. And yet, his every movement was completely captured by Jiang Pan, and his big hat covered the sky and accurately slapped on the basketball. PNF. With a muffled sound, I saw the basketball fly straight out like a bullet, and finally landed on the third floor of the stand. Oh! The fans immediately exclaimed. From the position where Jiang Pan shot the cap, to the landing point of the basketball, it is not to mention the height of 15 meters. Oh. My. God, General Jiang actually flew the fan to the third floor stand. Mike Brin's expression was excited. Although this picture is not as shocking as dunking rebounds, it is no less difficult than dunking rebounds. A cap flies a fan to a 15-meter high stand, which is much more difficult than flying 15 meters flat. Even in the entire NBA league, it is estimated that few people can do it. Jiang Pan's power is really unfathomable, no wonder Troy can't stand up when he fights him with his back. Amy John looked at Jiang Pan dumbfounded, as if looking at a monster. Even more coincidentally, the basketball landed where Maddie and Grant were sitting. The two looked at the basketball in front of them and immediately showed surprise. Taking advantage of this opportunity, they waved at Jiang Pan. Jiang Pan also saw them and knew these two people, and immediately waved at them in response. It seems that we don't know him well enough, and this guy's strength may not really be reflected yet. The more Maddie looked, the more pleasantly surprised. He originally thought that he knew enough about Jiang Pan. But now I found that the Jiang Pan I knew seemed to be just a little scratch. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the Shaquille of the Celestial Empire, and the power he is showing now, even Shaquille may not be able to do it. Tracy, when this game is over, we will respond to the management as soon as we go back, and let them win Jiang Pan as much as possible. Grant Hill said with some excitement. Oh? Don't you always think Troy Murphy is more powerful? How? Changed your mind? Maddie looked at him and quipped. It's not because I don't know anything about Jiang, but now that I do, he's really stronger than Troy. Grant Hill directly overturned his previous views and completely sided with Jiang Pan. Haha. You're too fast in this defection, aren't you? It's only been a few rounds, and if he really comes, you will really become the three masters. Tracy, you're holding on to this, aren't you? I've changed my mind now, actually, the three masters. Not bad either. Maddie and Hill are too humble, you say a word to me. The chat was quite lively, as if Jiang Pan was already their teammate. Even, the two of them began to fantasize about playing with Jiang Pan in their minds. On the sidelines, the head coach of the University of Notre Dame was extremely gloomy, and they didn't get a single point in the opening few rounds. Not to mention scoring, they can't even touch the basket on the offensive end. On the bench in Arizona, on the other hand, the faces of the substitutes were full of joy. The arrival of Jiang Pan directly raised the strength of the team by several levels. Before he made the team, they probably couldn't even pass the first round of the North Carolina round in March Madness, let alone hit the round of 16. But the arrival of Jiang Pan seems to make everything different. Coach Humphries is beginning to realize that from now on, they are in the ranks of the strong teams. Even really hope to hit the championship. Episode 18, the game continues, with the University of Notre Dame sending out a sideline ball. Jiang Pan's defense made it difficult for Troy Murphy, and he didn't even have room to connect the ball. Now it seems that it is impossible to attack inside, you can only try to shoot from medium and long range. Thinking of this, Murphy simply mentioned the upper line, which was the smooth receipt of the pass. However, Jiang Pan also chased after him, wrapping Murphy tightly like a cowhide candy, moving much faster under his feet than an ordinary center. No matter how Murphy threw him, he couldn't get rid of him, which made his already explosive mentality directly explode. In a panic, he actually dribbled the ball to his feet and directly gave up the ball. This scene made the live commentary marvel again. Jiang's defensive end is not limited to the inside, his defensive range can be pulled outside the three-point line. This kind of defensive ability, even Shaquille O'Neal can't do it. I already feel the bitterness of Troy. Mike Bryn kept explaining. Jiang locked Troy, which is equivalent to choking the throat of the University of Notre Dame. Murphy is the point they rely on the most on the offensive end, and once he's blocked, then Notre Dame's scoring will be tougher. If they can't find a way to crack it, the game could be one-sided. Amy John also analyzed carefully. In the next few rounds, the University of Arizona, led by Jiang Pan, directly crushed the opponent. From the opening game to now, Troy Murphy, the strongest scorer at the University of Notre Dame, shot a 0 of 8 Superghost performance. This statistic is one of the worst opening performances of his NCAA career. At this moment, Murphy was depressed to the extreme. The ball was in his hands, and seeing that time was running out again, he suddenly fired a cold arrow from outside the three-point line to break his scoring drought. However, Jiang Pan was ruthlessly slapped again. The basketball flew upside down and flew to the halfway position, and the Jiang Pan strode down quickly. Troy Murphy is also buried in chase, but his speed is much worse than Jiang Pan, and he can only eat fart behind. But he did not give up, still pursuing with all his strength, and even dreamed of sealing Jiang Pan. After Jiang Pan got the ball, a dragon rushed towards the opponent's basket. He jumped on the free throw line, swung his arms with the trend, and came with a windmill buckle. Come Jiang. Come. The atmosphere of the entire stadium was instantly ignited by this dunk, and almost the fans of the stadium were shouting wildly. For the first time, Jiang Pan personally felt the feeling of thousands of people shouting in unison, "What a fucking cool." In the last game, although there was such a situation, the fans watching the game at the scene were far less than today, and the atmosphere at that time was far less shocking than today. Click. Just as the fans were shouting, Jiang Pan, hanging on the basket, suddenly heard a familiar voice in his ears. Not good. Jiang Pan said secretly, and immediately let go of his hand. This voice was too familiar to him. But even if he sent his hand, he was still one step late. I saw that several cracks appeared on the rebound, and they were still spreading, and then covered the entire rebound. Under the gaze of everyone on the scene, the entire rebound shattered. Fortunately, Jiang Pan ran in time, and after landing, he did not forget to take the following arenas away to avoid being injured by the rebound. It fully shows the strong love of roommates. Arenas survived. But he was forced to perform a double ballet with Jiang Pan. No matter how you look at it, it is full of feelings. Troy Murphy was not so lucky. The broken backboard slag, as if it were raining, all fell on him. This scene in front of him, combined with his disastrous performance in the opening stage, is simply extremely tragic, and he, the king of the background, is estimated to be unable to escape. Murphy fled towards the sidelines in embarrassment, and he looked back at the debris on the floor, and his heart was covered with a huge shadow. At this moment, on the court, Jiang Pan and Arena's duo ballet, the foundation is surging. But fortunately, everyone's attention is now focused on the broken rebound, and no one pays attention to the embarrassment of the two of them. This. Jiang smashed the rebound again. This is him, it's already him who smashed the rebound in 2 consecutive games. Oh my god. Even Shaquille didn't do it. In the commentary table, Mike Bryn shouted in horror. Amy John, who was sitting next to him, held his head and exclaimed repeatedly. In the audience, Maddie and Grant were so shocked that they couldn't speak, and they just watched the footage of Jiang Pan smashing the rebound in the last game through the video replay. But I didn't expect that in today's game, Jiang Pan once again staged his good show. I don't care, I have to get the team to sign him, even if. Saying this, Maddie turned to look at Hill, revealing a malicious look. His expression made Grant Hill feel a pang of longing in his heart. You. What do you want? The corners of Maddie's mouth hooked an evil arc, even if you are exchanged. As soon as this remark came out, Grant Hilton had an urge to strangle Maddie. For the sake of a Jiang Pan, he even asked the team management to exchange him. Your idea is simply madness. On the court, Arenas stared blankly at the shattered rebound, the third time he had seen such a scene. For the Arizona players, the scene is not new, but it is still shocking. On the sidelines, Coach Humphrey swallowed, and after the last game, he understood that dunks do not require compensation. It's good that you don't compensate, otherwise it is estimated that you will be pitted by Jiang Pan again. Jiang Pan himself looked at the fragments of this place with a stunned expression. Made, the title of broken board maniac is really hammered. But he obviously felt that he didn't use much strength. How to say that this rebound is broken? Countless exclamations resounded wave after wave throughout the stadium. Those media reporters at the scene even grabbed this picture for a crazy shooting, and today's core report content can be set. This is the second time since the NCAA entered March Madness that it has been forced into a timeout due to broken rebounds, and both times it was all caused by Jiang Pan. You know, this rebound is not cheap. Jiang Pan this game knocked one. If it goes on like this, then you still have to get it? Tell you to tap and tap, how can you forget again? Humphreys looked at Jiang Pan, who was walking to the sidelines, and said immediately. Jiang Pan scratched his head very unjustly, I'm really useless. Episode 19. 20 minutes later, the new basketball hoop was installed and the game continued. Now Jiang Pan's every dunk is very careful, for fear of bursting the rebound again. And his stop at the basket is an unbreakable barrier, and anyone who tries to storm the Arizona penalty area has only one end. That is to be found by a merciless hat. The first half is running out. Troy Murphy was miserable under Jiang Pan's care, and his pitiful little expression was about to cry. So far, he has only 1 point, 1 rebound. Genema is 1 flower and 1 world, 1 point and 1 rebound. That's a far cry from what he's been doing this season. At this time, Murphy couldn't help but think of what he said before the start of the game, and instantly felt that his face was about to be swollen. With the final 8 seconds of the first half, the University of Arizona was executing the final offense of the first half. Arenas held the ball on the outside, pressed the time, intending to make the final throw himself. When there were 3 seconds left in the attack, Arenas was about to attack, but saw Jiang Pan turn around and run backwards, heading towards the basket. Arenas understood and immediately threw the ball over. Boom. The exciting explosion sounded, another empty snap. It was still a quasi-whistle goal, leaving only 0.7 seconds left for the opponent. After the opponent served, before he could make a move, he heard the referee's whistle ringing in his ears, and the first half of the game was over. Incredibly, Jiang Pan completed a total of 10 aerial relays throughout the first half. In the 20 minutes of the first half, he slashed 30 points, 15 rebounds, and 8 blocks. Just 2 blocks away from completing the half-court triple-double feat. Although it is a bit regrettable, this data has already set several records. 8 blocks in the half, setting a new NCAA first-half block record. 30 points and 15 rebounds in the half also made Jiang Pan the first player in the history of the University of Arizona team to play such statistics in the half. The first half is over. 59-29. The University of Arizona directly led by 30 points, which happened to be the same as Jiang Pan's personal score. Seeing this point difference, many fans can't help but think of the University of Arizona versus the University of North Carolina. It was also Jiang Pan who stepped up and scored 30 points in the second half to reverse the game. Amy, how's it going? I said Troy can't stop the river. At the commentary table, Mike Bryn said proudly to Amy John. Because at the beginning of the game, the two men each made predictions about Jiang Pan's score. Amy John predicted that Jiang Pan would score up to 20 points, while Mike Bryn believed that Jiang Pan would get another 30 points. Now, it turns out that Bryn's opinion is correct, but not entirely true. Jiang Pan cut 30 plus in halftime. What's so good? You guessed wrong. Don't forget that there is still a second half of this game. As long as Jiang is still playing, his score will continue to grow soon. So strictly speaking, we all guessed wrong. I have to say that Amy John's wave of forced judgment is really slippery. Said Mike Bryn couldn't even refute it. Yes, they both guessed wrong. Trailing by 30 points at halftime, leaving Notre Dame time to chase points, there were only 20 minutes left in the second half. They scored just 29 points in the entire first half, and in this form, it's impossible to recover 30 points in the next game. They have to score their own points while also making sure that the University of Arizona can't score so they have a chance to turn around. But judging from Jiang Pan's performance today, it is more difficult to stop him than Zhu Beiji marrying Chang'e. At the beginning of the second half, the game can already be declared into garbage time, but the University of Notre Dame still wants to die for a while. Jiang Pan's dominance also refreshed Maddie and Hill's cognition once again. If this guy enters the NBA in the future, he will definitely become a situation-changing existence. With that, Maddie took out her mobile phone and sent a text message to the team's general manager. And the content of the text message is to let the Magic start preparing now, and once Jiang Pan announces his participation in the draft, he will be taken down at all costs. Originally, he was going to report to the general manager of the team after the game, but after watching Jiang Pan's half-court performance, he really couldn't bear it. He even immediately wanted to hear the news that Jiang Pan had joined Orlando. "You're too anxious." Seal looked at Maddie with a stunned face. "It's called being the first to strike, Jiang, he deserves it." Maddie said, "There must be a lot of teams doing the same thing." Moments later, the second half of the game begins. The University of Arizona, which has a 30-point lead, decided to continue to let Jiang Pan play to further consolidate their advantage. As soon as the second half of the game came up, Jiang Pan gave Troy Murphy, who blocked and wanted to dunk, a sturdy nailboard hat. So far, his cap data has come to the ninth. Triple-double. 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 The fans immediately shouted the slogan of triple-double. As long as it is blocked again, Jiang Pan will be able to achieve the feat of capping 3 doubles. This is definitely a remarkable achievement, and usually, triple-doubles are points, rebounds, and assists. 3 doubles with blocks are rare, and looking at the entire history of the NBA, few people have been able to do it. At this moment, Arena seemed even more excited than Jiang Pan. He was the first to run to Jiang Pan's side and said excitedly, "Jiang. That's just one close." Jiang Pan didn't care too much about his data, and after he heard it, he just nodded indifferently. Looking at the trend of the game, the University of Notre Dame can basically declare it out. However, the match can be lost, but Jiang Pan must not be allowed to get a triple-double on their heads. In the following time, the attack of the University of Notre Dame was all dodging Jiang Pan, and Troy Murphy simply did not catch the ball. In this way, no matter how powerful Jiang Pan is, it is impossible to complete a triple-double. In order to prevent Jiang Pan from getting a triple-double, the University of Notre Dame was also open, and they were playing randomly on the field. Whoever is far away from Jiang Pan's position will shoot. It doesn't matter if you can enter or not. WTF. The University of Notre Dame is simply mad. Are they trying to preserve their last dignity? Mike Bren was already a little speechless, and it was the first time he had seen such a game. These players don't play on the field to win. But just to prevent Jiang Pan from getting a triple-double, looking at the University of Notre Dame, the players are spinning around like flies, which is simply ridiculous to the extreme. In this regard, Jiang Pan was also confused. Can you not face to this extent? Originally, he still maintained an indifferent attitude towards this triple-double. But now he changed his mind. The last cap, Lao Tzu must take it. Episode 20. Having made up his mind, Jiang Pan began to take the initiative. No matter who holds the ball, he will pounce on it, scaring the players of the University of Notre Dame to move the ball quickly, and no one dares to shoot. The situation on the field is a mess. Jiang Pan was alone, and he actually ran with 5 people. My God. Is this really a basketball game? When Mike Bren saw such a scene, he was a little skeptical. This Nima is simply a tiger chasing wild dog. This is probably the most absurd thing in the NCAA arena, and now the suspense of the game is no longer about winning or losing, but about whether Jiang can win the last block. Amy John's mouth was talking, but his heart was silently cheering for Jiang Pan. I don't know why, he also hopes that Jiang Pan can succeed. Notre Dame players continue their unlimited operation, and they would rather even have a 35-second violation than shoot. NCAA is a 35-second format. However, he could hide from the first day of junior high and could not hide from 15. With 13 minutes left in the second half, Ryan Humphrey made a 3-point shot from the outside. With a bang, the basketball pops out. But it was a long rebound, and the ball happened to fall right into Troy Murphy's hands. So far, Murphy has only 1 point and 1 rebound, and he is actually desperate to improve his numbers. After picking up the rebound, Murphy saw that Jiang Pan was still under the basket, and he immediately chose a backward jumper. Whether you enter or not, vote first. At least this is already his best chance to score. And, shoot backwards, probably not. The basketball is flying out of your fingertips and is rising. Jiang Pan under the basket took 2 big steps in Murphy's direction, and then jumped with all his strength, and when he reached the highest point, he just slapped the ball and flew it. Come. Jiang. At this moment, the fans stood up and applauded. Jiang Pan's performance has been affirmed by everyone. This is the first cap triple-double in the history of the NCAA league. And this last block is very difficult, at least 5 meters from under the basket to where Murphy shot. But Jiang Pan was able to rush up and forcibly seal it, which shows how excellent his athletic ability and reaction speed are. Such a cap, the entire NCAA league, only Jiang can do it. In the commentary table, Mike Brin's tone was excited. In the history of NCAA, the first feat of capping a triple-double really appeared before his eyes. No. Mike, I have to correct this. Don't say the NCAA, or look at the NBA league, no one may be able to do such a block. Newton's coffin board can't be pressed down. Amy John was equally excited. He is not exaggerating, but stating the facts. Let's just say that the cover just now requires very good bouncing power. In his opinion, the height of running and jumping must reach at least 125 centimeters. This standard can eliminate the vast majority of players who are known for their bounce. In addition to the ability to bounce, you must also have Jiang Pan's height and arm span, so as to complete the closure just now. Question? Who else but Jiang Pan can do it? On the court, Troy Murphy looked at the fanned basketball, and he was completely desperate. He swore that even the nightmare that scared him into peeing had never been so desperate. Murphy's self-confidence has been destroyed again and again in this game, and now he has completely lost his self-confidence, and he has also developed an inferiority complex in his heart. It turns out that the technology that he is proud of is not a bird in front of Jiang Pan. This cover of Jiang Pan completely killed the University of Notre Dame, they completely lost their goal on the field, and the game was completely reduced to garbage time. Subsequently, Jiang Pan, who successfully completed the task, was replaced by Coach Jeffries. MVP. MVP, MVP. MVP. The moment he walked off the field, the fans stood up and chanted the MVP slogan. This is the biggest affirmation for a player. Listening to the shouts of all the fans, Jiang Pan felt an unprecedented feeling. It's hard to imagine that a player who has only played 2 games can resonate with the fans and even make them shout the slogan of MVP. But Jiang's performance in this game can definitely bear this title. I'd like to call him the NCAA's strongest interior lineman. Mike Brin couldn't contain the excitement in his heart. If he were a fan on the scene, he would also shout MVP at Jiang Pan at this time. This is not an NCAA game, but a Jiang's personal showtime. He completely turned the game into a show. Amy John said in amazement. The difference between the 2 teams is almost 40 points, and the message in Troy Murphy's eyes shows that he doesn't want to play anymore and wants to get off the court early and leave this nightmarish place. Beep, the final whistle blows, the game is over. The University of Arizona defeated the University of Notre Dame with a 38-point victory. In the whole game, Jiang Pan cut 38 points, 22 rebounds, and 10 blocks of super triple-double data. And this made him the first player in NCAA history to play 38 plus 22, not to mention 10 blocks. The camera from the scene showed Jiang Pan and Troy Murphy. The expressions on the faces of the two are completely different. Jiang Pan and his teammates excitedly high-fived in celebration, while Troy Murphy was wearing a towel on his head and hanging his head low, looking extremely frustrated. Grant, do you see what? In the audience, Maddie showed a rather meaningful look. What do you mean? Hill was a little dazed, he didn't know what Maddie was trying to express. Maddie smiled slightly, I smelled the championship from him. Grant Hill was slightly stunned, and then nodded, yes, this year's University of Arizona, maybe it is really the biggest dark horse in the NCAA, or even a black to the end. I'm not talking about the NCAA. Maddie shook her head, it's an NBA championship. Hearing this, Grant Hill froze immediately, and it took a long time to come to his senses. You mean? Good. As long as he joins the Magic, I'm 80% sure I'll win a championship. Maddie's last words can be described as full of confidence. And his confidence comes from Jiang Pan's terrifying dominance of the stadium. Winning Jiang Pan is equivalent to winning the NBA championship. After the game, reporters came to the sidelines and found Troy Murphy, who was still sitting on the bench. Troy, I know it's been a bad day for you. Before the game started, you threatened to teach Jiang a lesson, but now the result is the opposite. I didn't mean to mock you, I just wanted to know, What do you think of this player Jiang? Murphy was silent for a moment, and then said slowly, on the court today, a Superman broke in. If in the words of the Celestial Empire. That was the Hong Desolate Immortal who broke into a Celestial Empire.